Hey y'all, I'm back to talk a little bit more about how to move abroad, how to become an expat. We've talked about things that you need to consider before you move. Yesterday we talked all about visas, and today we'll talk about planning the move, making the move, that part of it. But first, if you are new here, I am Adelia Borshade of PickyGirlTravelsTheWorld.com. I am a finance coach, money mindset coach, whatever you want to call it. Basically, I help people get their money right so that they can move abroad or travel the world. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. That way, the next time I upload a video, you'll be one of the first to know. Let's get into it. You've got your visas, you know what country you're going to, but now you've got to figure out how to bring your life in the United States to a close and prepare to go to your new country. First thing that needs to be considered is whether or not this is a permanent move. If this is a temporary move, you plan to come back in a year or 5, you're probably not going to want to sell all of your belongings. If you're coming back to the United States, because getting restarted and reestablished can be really expensive. If that is your situation, you need to consider what are the costs going to be associated with storage. Are you going to keep your place and rent it out? Are you going to try and, if you do that, are you going to try and manage it from a distance, or are you going to get a property manager? What happens to your car? You know, these are things to think about. I am in the camp of sell it all. Personally, when I made the decision to move abroad back in 2016, I knew that I would not be returning to the United States by choice. You know, we never know what's going to happen. Did any of us see the pandemic coming? You know, but I always say, if I can help it, I will not be returning. So for me, I sold my car to CarMax. I went in about a week before I left. They gave me an offer. I shopped around at a couple of other places that offered to buy cars. They weren't giving me any money, nothing compared to what CarMax offered. And then the day before my flight to Honduras, I drove to CarMax and had a friend pick me up and take me back to my apartment. And then the next day, my cousin gave me a ride to the airport. I also sold or gave away virtually everything I own. I will put a picture right here to show you the only stuff that I have left in the United States. I sold my TV, I sold furniture, I sold beds, I gave a bunch of stuff away to shelters. You know, you have to decide what is worth selling. You know, I will tell you this, don't approach it from a standpoint of, well, I paid X amount of money for it, I need to make this. That is going to make this whole process really suck for you. I wanted to get a fair price, but more importantly, I needed the stuff gone. I also went through mementos, you know, all that stuff you've been saving since like high school, elementary school. And I really thought about it in terms of, first of all, am I going to bring all of this stuff across the world with me? Am I going to pay for that? The answer was no. So then that meant whatever I didn't get rid of, I was going to have to store somewhere. I wasn't going to pay to store anything because I'm not about that life. And so what I was going to leave at my cousin's house, you know, ultimately when I die, my children will get this stuff. And I kept thinking, when they look through, you know, my high school yearbooks and my memory books and all of that, to them, is it going to mean the same thing that it meant to me? No, it's just going to be old stuff that mom had that now they've got to get rid of. I went through all of the family pictures and I gave my girls their pictures. There was no reason for me to hold on to that stuff. Jewelry, things that I don't wear, things that I had been saving to give to them at some point in the future, I gave it to them. Basically, I went through my stuff like I was dying. Who would I want to have this stuff if I died? And then I sold the things that I could sell, and what I couldn't sell, I gave away. If you are making a sponsored move, if it is a corporate move, that may dictate how much of your stuff you bring with you. If you're a corporate transfer, your job is going to pay probably to ship your things. That's a completely different situation than making an independent move, or like as a teacher, you know, you don't get a huge allowance to ship your belongings. When I first moved to Honduras, they did ship 2 boxes for me. And I learned a very valuable and expensive lesson. Virtually everything I shipped to Honduras was damaged. Funny thing, it didn't get damaged in Honduras. It got damaged before it ever left the state of Texas. Thank you, UPS. But when I started to talk to like my principal, because, you know, people with those jobs, they get moved, they get stuff shipped. And he told me like, yeah, there's always something that gets broken, that sort of thing. So right there, after that experience, I decided I was never shipping anything ever again. 1, because the cost, and 2, it couldn't be guaranteed that my stuff wouldn't arrive broken. So I am very much of the mindset that if it can't fit in a bag, I can't own it because it can't go with me. But if you don't have a corporate job, another option that I have not used personally, but I have seen a lot of teachers do this when they're moving from one country to another, because usually in those situations, the new school will pay for your tickets, they'll pay for X amount of luggage, but they don't really ship things. If you have a corporate job, that's different. They are probably going to ship your belongings. But there's a service called Send My Bag, and there's several companies that are very similar to that. Let's say you are getting on your flight and there's an embargo and they only allow you to take 3 pieces of luggage, but you have 6. You can contract with Send My Bag and they will literally ship your suitcase from one country to another. It's about $200, $250 per bag, which isn't horrible. A lot of times that's cheaper than shipping cargo. As you are choosing how to travel, I have what are called deployment bags. They are the largest suitcases. Basically, they're soft-sided trunks is what they are. They are the largest bag that you can have and have it go underneath a plane. They're, you know, in each one of those, I get 50 pounds of weight unless I am flying first class. Then I get 70. That's that's a little trick I learned, that if you can upgrade your ticket to first class, you can usually get an extra bag, definitely extra weight. What kinds of things should you pack? That's going to vary a lot based on where you're going. If you are going to a tropical climate, you're really going to have to think about those winter clothes you own. Should you bring them with you? What makes the most sense to bring with you? That sort of thing. You're also going to want to be strategic about bringing items that you can't get in your new place. If you are in any Facebook group, you talk to anybody who has lived abroad, they will tell you hair care products and spices. I mean, like, I don't even cook, but yeah, I pack some Slap Your Mama and Tony Chachere's, that kind of thing, because I have, with the exception of China, I have lived places where I could get those things, but they are incredibly expensive. If you're planning to move to Southeast Asia, you want to think about lotion, skincare products, because in that part of the world, it's very common to put whitening agents in those products. And if you don't want that, you'll want to bring your own. Makeup. Obviously, I don't really wear any, but if you do wear makeup, do they have people your skin tone in that country? Because if they don't, trying to find your shade there is going to be a little tricky. If you are on specific medication, you will definitely want to look and investigate. Is that available? What's it called in your country? How much of a supply can you bring with you? Same thing with supplements. You know, if there are supplements you like to take, you'll make sure you want to bring an amount to start with you. Now, with these things that you're bringing that you probably can't get where you are moving to, you also need to think about what's your plan to restock. Are you going to visit the US to get those things? Is somebody going to come visit you and they're going to mule them down for you? Is Amazon available where you're moving? If so, how much is it going to cost? I'll tell you a little story. My master plan when I moved to Honduras was, well, if I don't have it, I'll just order it from Amazon. Well, one, you can't get Amazon in Honduras. At least you couldn't when I lived there. And two, we didn't have a postal service. We didn't have like real legit street addresses. So getting anything mailed to Honduras was a nightmare. A friend of mine did send me a care package, but literally they were in another part of Honduras, brought it with them, and then had to ship it on an airline. And I had to go to the Tegucigalpa airport to pick it up. So logistical things like that we sort of take for granted when we live in the United States, when you live other places, it may get tricky. Something else that people never think about, if there is something you're like, oh, if I left that back in the US, somebody can just mail it to me. Depending on what it is, it may not be allowed to be mailed into that country, or your new country might have tariffs and duties on that. I see it a lot here in Mexico where people have supplements that they can't find here. They have somebody back in the States send it to them. That's illegal. You cannot import supplements into the country that way. So they get held up in customs. They eventually either get destroyed or sent back, or they will have somebody send them some piece of technology or something like that, and then find out that the duty, the tariff, the tax that is being charged is like twice the value of the product in the first place. So that's something you want to think about as you're kind of mapping out what are you going to take with you, what are you going to leave behind. If you are going on a work visa, you will probably have to have your documents authenticated or apostilled, basically verify that they are legit documents. I did not have to do that when I moved to Honduras. They just kind of took my word for things. But I did have to do that when I moved on a work visa to Kuwait and to China. So it's going to vary. I moved to Mexico independently, so none of that was required. However, especially if you have children and you think that you may have to enroll them in school, be part of your packing before you leave. You want to gather your important documents, make copies. You're going to probably want to get them translated, and either you'll want to get them authenticated in some way, either apostilled or attested. Basically, those two processes are the same thing. The more popular one, because it all has to do with which countries signed some treaty. Most countries require apostille if they are going to require some kind of authentication of your documents. A quick Google search can tell you whether or not your country is one of those countries. But you don't want to be in a situation where you're in the new country and you've got this birth certificate that proves who you are or who this child is, and it's in English. They can't read that and know that that's an authentic document. So it's good to have that, do that stuff before you leave as part of your pre-move planning. Something else you need to do as you are getting ready to move abroad is register with the State Department in the STEP program. STEP stands for Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. It is free. And what it does is it lets the US government, lets the State Department, the embassy, or the consulate there know that, hey, we've got an American living here. It's not really about the help that they're going to provide you, because during the pandemic, I think a lot of people were expecting more from the State Department and the embassies than they're really in the business of doing. But what it does do is it puts you on the email list. So when there are new travel warnings, or let's say we have something like the pandemic happen again, and you want to know, are there evacuation flights, that kind of thing. If you're registered with STEP, you get those emails. You do want to do that. Another part of the planning, you need to think about money. How are you going to access your money? How are you going to move money? If you have some kind of residency visa or a work visa, you'll be able to open a bank account in your new country. If you're going someplace on a tourist visa, possibly on a digital nomad visa, I don't know that you have the ability to open a bank account. So how are you going to access your money that's in the United States? Or the problem I had more often, like in China, trying to move the money I made in China out of China was the biggest pain in the butt. How are you going to do that? What's the common way to do that? A lot of people talk about TransferWise. I've not used them, but I have used Remitly and Zoom, which is owned by PayPal. I've used them to send my Spanish teacher in Honduras money to pay for my classes. I've also used it to send money from the US to Mexico so that I can get it. So you need to think about the logistics of that. Do it while you're planning, while you're packing. Don't let the first time you think about that be when you arrive in your new country. Another preparation thing you need to do before you move is figure out your housing. If you are going on a work visa or something like that, they are going to assist you with the housing. You've got somebody on the ground, theoretically, who can go look at places. But if you are moving independently, this is more of a concern. I cannot stress to you enough, do not send money for a place that you have never seen in person, or someone you trust very much has not seen it in person. My suggestion to you is to do something short term, maybe get an Airbnb. This is, again, if you're moving independently. It's going to be a little different if you are moving part of a corporate move or something like that. But if you're moving independently and all of this is on you, do not send money to somebody before you have ever set foot in that country. Don't do it. It virtually never ends well. Get yourself an Airbnb in the area that you think you want to live in. It'll give you a chance to try out the neighborhood, see what it's really like. Like, is it shady after dark? Does it get dangerous? How close is it to the park or whatever amenity you want? Those are the things you need to do in preparation of your move. So if you've got questions or concerns about the move abroad process, how to become an expat, drop those in the comments. And if there's something specific that y'all want to know, I can make another video on that. But if not, tomorrow will be the last video in this series. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.